to give a little bit of a talk about balancing the home and work life, mainly because we're all at different stages in our life, obviously. But as virtuous ladies, it's very important to find that balance. And this applies to any stage of your life, whether that's you being in uni and studying, whether that's you starting to work, whether you have, when you get married. So I just put up this presentation just to quickly go through a few tips, a few hints, and kind of speak about what I do personally a little bit. Obviously, it's different for everyone, but I think it can be useful to hear from other people's experiences. So why is this topic important? I personally feel like having a balance between your work life and your home life is key for you to be able to preserve your mental and physical well-being. Even when you try and make everything perfect, eventually you want to make sure that it is manageable long term. You want to make sure that you don't end up burning out, basically. And it can be quite difficult because at every stage in your life, there's different things happening at different times, and things keep changing. So it's important to keep looking back and keep reanalyzing the situation and see how you can make it different to be able to fit your lifestyle, basically. The other reason why I think it's important is to preserve your home life. Some people are so career driven, which is very good. Also, busy studying and trying to achieve your goals, that sometimes it's easy to put at the back your personal life, whether that's your friends, your family, whether that's your husband or wife, because this applies to men as well, I guess. You want to make sure that you don't miss out on other things in your life and then regret it later on in life. It's also important because at the end of the day, you want to be able to fulfill your God-given purpose. If you focus on one thing alone, sometimes it can be easy to just miss out on what else God might be wanting you to do. So if you find a balance, it always helps to be able to give your attention to different kinds of things and be able to allow other things to come into your life, if that makes sense. So can I ask one of you, if possible, to read the verse that I've put on the screen? So just from Proverbs 31, 10 to 31. Can our sister Matiko read it for us, please? Matiko, are you there?
Yeah.
Will you be able to read it for us, please?
Proverbs chapter 31, verses 10 to 31. Reading from the NIV. A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than ruby. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. Verse 18. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. Verse 22. She makes covering for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat amongst the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with satin. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. Verse 27. She watches over the affairs of her household, and does not eat the bread of idols. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. 31. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her work bring her praise at the city gate. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So as you can see in this passage of the Bible, I know it's a bit long to read. It's talking about the role as a wife, obviously. And I believe that many of us, if not all of us, have the desire to eventually get married and eventually build their own household and their own home. But it's all things that you don't necessarily have to wait until you're ready to get married to be able to work on them. You can start preparing for these things earlier on, and they're actually things that are going to be able to help you lead your life before you even get married anyway. As you can see, this is quite a long list of what it means to be a noble wife. And there's a lot of things that are part of it, basically. And so it just shows you even more how important it is to be able to find a way to make all of those things fit into your lifestyle and be able to balance it all. Because otherwise you wouldn't be able to. Okay, so just as a background about myself, as you all know, my name is Matelda. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm 25 years old. I studied at university in Nottingham while my family lived in Hertfordshire. So I started having to kind of, take care of myself and do a bit of cooking for myself as well, just like we've been mentioning before I got married. I'm currently a specialty trainee doctor in pediatrics, and I've been married for 2 years. And the reason why I've put my age on there is mainly because when I was younger, I didn't think that I was going to get married at 23 years old. Every time people asked, I always thought it would be in my late 20s or early 30s. And so I just want to enhance even more the importance of starting to think about these things earlier. Because even though marriage might not be in your radar right now, it doesn't mean that you won't get married earlier than you think, because life is very unpredictable. And so it's always worth to start working on yourself and improve yourself early on anyway, because it won't cost you anything, and if anything, it will only bring you benefits. So in terms of my lifestyle, as I said, I work as a doctor at the moment. I have quite a busy schedule with which I have shift work, and I also do on-call shifts. Because of the nature of my job, my schedule changes every week. So I have weeks when I work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I have other weeks where I do long days, so I might work 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening, and that might be 4 days a week or more. I have weeks when I work the weekend and then have some days off in the week, and other times I might do night shifts. So as you can see, it's quite variable from week to week, which makes it even more difficult sometimes to be able to organize my life and to be able to balance everything else around my work. The other factor, for example, which doesn't apply to everyone, but in my case it does, is that until recently I was working in Chesterfield, which meant that I had to commute there, and that also adds on time to your daily life, because obviously if you're taking about 2 hours back and to go there 1 hour and an hour to come back, that is also taken away from your home life. In terms of my home situation, I currently live with my husband. We don't live with anyone else. And my husband is a full-time student because he's gone back to school, and he's also working part-time, just to show that he's also very busy. I am very busy, but at the end of the day, someone's got to do the work that needs to be done. So a few tips for me in terms of preparing for managing at home, which I think you can put into action right from now, is to be proactive in your own house. Whether that's you now living with your parents, whether you live with some other family member, whether you are in a university accommodation, it's never too late to be proactive about observing what other people do, about learning from other people, about trying new things, about experimenting new things. And nowadays, there's so many resources out there. One of them being, for example, Beck's Flavor on YouTube, where you can just go and, get an idea, get some inspiration. People can teach you how to do things. So it's very important to kind of not use it as an excuse that, oh, well, I'm really busy with uni work or I'm really busy with studying. You can already start to practice things right now. One big factor for me is to learn to organize your time, especially if you're a student. You already have to do that anyway, because studying can take over your life sometimes if you're not careful. So I'm sure that a lot of us are already doing that. But if you start to do it in a way that you're already thinking about managing your home as well, then it will really help you in the future. The other tip I have is to explore your strengths and weaknesses early on. We all have things that we really enjoy doing, and we all have things that we really don't like doing. Whether that's cleaning, cooking, not everyone enjoys doing those things. And so it's important to find out, okay, what is it that I like? And if there's something that I don't like, how can I improve on that front? Whereas if you've got something that you're really good at, how can I use that to help me with managing my home one day? And as I said before, which goes hand in hand with being proactive, is to seek opportunities to learn from others, whether that's from your family members, your parents, your siblings, whether that's from close friends, or whether that's from people that you might not necessarily know, for example, on YouTube or on websites. So make sure that you're trying to work on yourself and improve yourself rather than waiting for someone to come and teach you. So how I've kind of divided it into different aspects of managing a home, which I think are important to me. It's very different for everyone. It's important to keep in mind, number one. Number two, I'm not perfect. I've only been married for 2 years, and I'm not gonna lie, I also struggled at the beginning, and I still am learning. But if there's anything that I can share with you, then I'm happy to do that. So what number one thing is about planning. When eventually you get married, I think it's very important to communicate with your husband and be very open about your expectations from him and from yourself. My husband, for example, can do everything in the house. He cooks, he cleans. I don't really need to ask him. So for us, it feels like it's a very much a split effort. But not all husbands are like that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people are not used to doing things at home. Some people might not even know how to do certain things. So it's very important to be open right from the get-go, rather than expecting things from them or them expecting things from you, and then things not working because you don't know what's going on and who's doing what. And this doesn't only apply in marriage, it also applies in any other aspects. When I was in uni and I lived with my housemate, we were open about it from the get-go as well. Are we going to cook all together? Am I going to do my own thing and you do your own thing? Do we want to do grocery shopping together and share it? Or do you prefer to keep your own ingredients? How often do you want to cook, if we want to cook together or not? And things like that. Whether we're going to split the home chores. Do you want us to clean all together at the same time, and maybe I do the bathroom, you do the kitchen? Or shall I clean everything this week and you clean everything the next week? So it's all things that can help you, not just in your marriage, but already right now, if you're going to end up living with someone that is not your family, for example. The other thing that is very important about the planning stage is to set achievable and realistic targets. As I said before, there's things that people don't like to do, and there's things that you're never going to be able to force yourself to like to do. So it's important for you to be realistic about what it is that you can actually do and how long that's going to take you. I love making lists. I love making plans, but I'm not very good at sticking to them because sometimes I don't make them realistic enough. It's very easy to have a to-do list and then put a million things on that list when actually you've not actually got enough time to get through that whole list. So try and make sure that even if it means maybe keeping it more simple than what you would like, if you don't have enough time, then learn to prioritize what the most important thing is for you to do that day. Whether that's, okay, today I need to finish this coursework, so I'm going to focus on that more. And instead of cooking a complex meal for dinner, I'm going to make something really simple, like a pasta and sauce, for example. So be real with yourself. Try to think about the big picture. What is it that I've got on my plate? What needs to come first? And what can I add on to it afterwards? And this comes under organizing your time as well. Make sure that you're trying to think about everything that you need to do rather than focusing on just one thing. In terms of home chores, main things really are cleaning and cooking. You need to figure out what works for you. As I said, it's different for everyone, and it depends on what you're used to, or again, your lifestyle. For example, for me with my work schedule, I do sometimes have weeks where I end up having just one day off, or I've had weeks where I've ended up working 7 days in a row. So for that week, for example, I wouldn't have a day off. So if in my case, I have to plan ahead. So if I normally would use one day to do my whole house cleaning, then that week that is not going to work out. But that doesn't mean that I would not clean the house at all for that week. So instead of, for example, using a Saturday to clean the whole house, I will do smaller sessions. So for example, do just hoovering on one day, just the kitchen on another day, just the bathroom on another day. So see what works around your schedule and decide whether it's better for you to do everything in one go, or whether you're going to split the house into, shorter cleaning sessions and do those things more frequently. And the same thing goes for cooking. Just like we were mentioning with Becca beforehand, there's a lot of things that look expensive, but actually if you bulk cook, if you bulk buy things and then batch cook things, some meals can last you for quite a few days, and you don't have to spend a lot to make them, compared to having to buy them, for example, from a takeaway store. So again, see what works for you. Some people prefer to have a fresh, different meal every day. I'm very simple. I'm happy to have the same. I could have jollof rice for lunch for 5 days in a row. I wouldn't mind. So see what you like, see what the person that you're sharing it likes as well, and then see how you can work it out. I think sometimes it can be very helpful to, again, plan ahead. So we can sometimes make a schedule and decide, okay, these are the meals that we're going to eat this week, which helps you with doing your shopping so that you don't end up wasting food, which we can't do that on a student budget anyway. And then you can just batch cook at the beginning of the week, and then throughout the week you've got your time to study because you've got your meals ready to go. The other really big advice I've got is to make sure that you become best friends with your freezer. Obviously, as a student, sometimes it can be difficult because you don't have that much freezer space. But to keep in mind for when you eventually get married anyway, when you have a freezer, you can buy some ingredients in bulk. For example, with a lot of chicken and meat, I tend to freeze my meat. And then when I know that I want to use it, I can defrost it and use it to make specific meals. There's some meals that are amazing, and actually I feel like they taste better when you reheat them. So for example, when I make lasagna, I make a massive one, and then I cut it into portions and put them in the freezer. And then on a day where we don't have time to cook anything, we're like, oh yeah, we can just grab one, defrost and eat it on the go. And it actually tastes really nice. Not everything can be frozen, but there are some meals that you can freeze. And so that's another thing to keep in mind and try to experiment around. And again, try to learn from other people, because there's some meals that you might not have thought about, or your mom or dad might cook them in a very difficult way. And then you go on a YouTube channel and realize that, oh, actually there's a simpler recipe with less ingredients, but it still tastes amazing. And it can help you a lot to kind of have substitutes for certain meals that seem very complex. to actually have other recipes that make them quite quick and simple. So yeah, try and set a routine and try to work around what you need to achieve. The other aspect that is really important to think about is finances. Again, when you live with your parents, it can be quite easy to not think about these things because, first of all, you don't have an income coming in. You don't have to worry about a lot of the costs of running a household. Most of the times you might have a bit of money given to you by your parents, and that is really it. And then suddenly you go to university and you've got to think about your deposit, your rent, and all of those things. You need to think about your grocery spending and maybe money that you want to use to go out with your friends for lunch or for dinner. And you're just hit with this massive student loan that drops into your bank account and you don't even know what to do with it. So it's very important to try and learn how to budget that earlier on. And again, that's something that will help you eventually when you get married as well. So things that I think help a lot is budgeting, for example. So when you get your student loan, for example, rather than just spending it blindly, allocate every single pound that is in that account to something, whether that's paying your fixed costs, whether that's your basic things like rent, bills eventually, and all those things. And also make sure that you always have a little bit of money that is saved aside. And I always emphasize this with anyone. See it as if it's an essential cost as well. In any kind of money that you get, make sure that you save a little bit. Even if it's a small percentage, anything small eventually adds up. And you might think that, right now I don't need savings and I've got the bare minimum anyway. But actually, any little helps. And in the long term, it will really make a difference. So, and this comes under the next point, to plan towards your future costs. There's a lot, I've always regretted, for example, how I spend my money in university. Because I was quite good at saving, but then I would always end up having some big unexpected costs that in hindsight, I don't think were essential. There are things that will come your way that you will not have planned or that you will not have expected. For example, in my case, I got married way earlier than I thought I would. And I got married the same year, 2 days after I graduated. So I didn't work before I got married. So had I not saved money during my university course, I wouldn't have had any money to help towards the cost of, my marriage, my wedding, for example. So it's all things to think about, to just make sure that you've got a bit of a saving pot, so that if anything comes up, you're able to have those opportunities open to you, whether that's you buying a car or a house, or relocating to a different area to be able to take on a new job after you finish university. The other thing to think about is admin. So again, when you're living with your parents, you don't necessarily have to think about setting up energy, broadband providers, thinking about council tax, thinking about paying for insurance, whether that's house insurance, life insurance, car insurance. It could be anything really. It's things that once you end up moving in by yourself, become very essential to think about. So again, take this time, take the opportunity that you have now to ask your parents, how do you do this? What do I need to know about? And how do I go about it? How do you sign up for it? And how do you open an account and cancel an account? So that you have an idea of how it works and how much it costs, so that you don't get shocked once you end up moving into your own home by yourself. Other aspects to your home management, got time. I've put it afterwards, but it's definitely not the least important. At the end of the day, everything that we do and everything that we achieve is by the grace of God. So make sure that you're always putting that time in as well. Whether that's church, whether that's your own quiet time, make sure that you always have that time to be able to seek that wisdom and strength from God. Because when it feels like everything is a bit too much, and when it feels like everything is a bit too difficult to manage, that's where your strength is going to come from. That's where your motivation is going to come from. The next aspect, which I think is really important as well, is rest. I've put a verse there from Psalm 127 verse 2, which says, "It is useless for you to work so hard from early morning until late at night, anxiously working for food to eat, for God gives rest to his loved ones." And this is a very, very important aspect for me. It doesn't matter what kind of job you have. It doesn't matter what kind of lifestyle you have. It's essential that you also always manage to have some rest time, because otherwise you are going to burn out eventually. You can't split yourself into a million pieces. So you need to learn to give yourself to each aspect of your life one at a time, and eventually have a bit of a switch off from work, from house chores, from everything. So it's important for you to always find a way to have your time, to have time with your family and your friends, and eventually when you get married, to have time with your husband. And these are things that are very, very important and are going to help you managing your balance, balancing your lifestyle as well. I've just put this verse at the end from Colossians chapter 3 verse 23, saying, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." And this is one verse that I tend to tell myself and remind myself of every time I think, why am I even doing this? What is the point? I'm too tired. I can't be bothered. It's not a good day. At the end of the day, everything we do should be to glorify God. Everything we do should be to be a constant worshiping of God. So try and, again, seek that strength from him when it comes to, when it gets a bit too much. And always recognize that it's okay for it to get a bit too much. You don't have to be ashamed of it. It's okay to not be in a perfect situation like someone's situation might look like. Don't compare yourself to other people. If anything, try to get the good things or good aspects out of what they do. But always remember that you don't get to see everything behind the scenes in someone else's life. So just do your best, and I'm sure that you will all be fine. Thank you.